Hey, how's it going? David here. Straight to the point, gonna be talking about the Gran Turismo movie today. I did get an early screening, and then I drove an hour to the theater that I was supposed to be going to, and then they lost my tickets and I was not on the list, so that was fun. But out of sheer coincidence, I was able to get into the movie with only a minute left to spare before they closed the door, thanks to the security guard who was supposed to be not letting people in without tickets, recognized me and said, oh, he's good, he's a car guy. And so he walked me into the theater and said, sit down. I'm mostly gonna be talking about the realism of the movie, it as a video game movie, because we all know video game movies usually suck. And at the same time, could it be a rival to other big car movies that are good? I got my racing license recently, so I can have some aspect of track etiquette and things of that nature when watching the Gran Turismo movie of what I thought was realistic, what I didn't think was realistic. And I'm glad to say that this is not a video game movie, and that is why it's good. Like, thank God. The reason the Gran Turismo movie works is, one, it's based on a true story. And based on a true story usually means it was inspired by a true story and then they changed a whole bunch of things to make it work as a movie. Thankfully, the timeline of Gran Turismo overall works with our main character, Jan Martinborough. Now, the only issues I would say, which it's not even really an issue that much unless you're a nitpicker, is that the timeline is a little off. It's framed in a way to where Orlando Bloom's character pitches out the GT Academy to Nissan, and then Jan gets selected to be a contender, and then he wins. It's almost like they frame him as the first ever winner of the GT Academy, which, believe it or not, he wasn't. He just has probably the most impactful story and most memorable story of the GT Academy, because he had a family that just really didn't support him playing PlayStation, didn't support him having so many hours on it. It's a true underdog sports movie rather than a video game movie. Because how are you gonna make a movie about a racing game, really, at all? Well, they tried that for Need for Speed, and it didn't kind of work, so yeah. With his story in particular is very intriguing because I could relate to it in some ways, because in 2004, I would sometimes competitively play Halo 2, and I told my parents that Major League Gaming and esports were gonna be this huge thing and a big moneymaker in the future and a career in the future, and they just didn't buy it. I could relate to that parental not understanding that this could be a thing. So the GT Academy, if you did not know, in a nutshell, was essentially Nissan and Gran Turismo working together to find the best Gran Turismo players in the world. They then bring them out to a racetrack, go through a relentless academy and basically vet the players to see if they can even handle a real race car, because this was very experimental, and to prove everybody wrong that they're not just gamers, they could be race car drivers. This is before sims like Assetto Corsa and iRacing and all that was really big, so you're basically only using Gran Turismo as a basis for real race car driving. Long story short, Jan won the competition, then he eventually was on the podium of Le Mans with Nissan's race team. So it's a great story. So there's the basic understanding of the Gran Turismo story and why it actually works. Because it's a sports movie, it's not a video games movie, you're rooting for an underdog. Now, there is a very dark spot that I'm not gonna spoil in his career that I was absolutely shocked that they had the guts to put it in the movie. Because originally, as soon as I heard about this movie and I heard about the driver they were basing it on, I was like, are they gonna skip over that very tragic part of his whole story? And they don't, which gave me more respect to the movie and the creators of the movie. The other thing about the timeline is technology. Like, for example, he's using like Instagram stories and stuff, and he won the competition in 2011, but Instagram stories didn't come out till 2016, which is me being a nitpicky jerk. However, it's very neat and tidy. The story is paced very well. But now what you're really here for probably is the racing. How is the racing? This has more racing in it than I think any car movie I've ever seen. comparable to like Ford versus Ferrari. And a lot of the racing is real. There are times you can tell it's CG cars, but it's pretty few and far between. There's tons of racing. If you want to see a lot of racing, this is the movie for you. It's very creatively done. There's nods to the video game during the racing, but it's not in a tacky or corny way. It's just on that fine line. It's cool. You see it, you're like, okay, that's cool. Like for example, if he's in the middle of a really crowded pack and there's like a bird's eye view, they'll have his rank or what his position is above his car. It'll say like number 5 as he's like weaving through and you're like, oh, there he is. So it lives up to the Gran Turismo love of racing, love of driving. I was entertained the entire movie. There really wasn't anything that was a huge red flag to me. The story is close enough to the real life story to not take you out of it. The driving feels realistic enough. It actually made me like fall back in love with the R35 GTR. I was like, that car is cool. And I've driven them before and you know, they've been around forever. But in 2011, you know, that car was a rocket ship. It must have been crazy for these GT Academy drivers and the G-forces they were dealing with to get shoved in these things. It must have been intimidating. It's directed by the same guy who directed District 9, which is a fantastic sci-fi movie, and I would have never guessed that he would have directed a Gran Turismo movie. But he did it in a very effective way. He's very good with special effects. So when there is CGI, it feels pretty well implemented, and he's done that so well with District 9. So it's shot extraordinarily well. The cast is very, very good. Also, shout out to Millie Hartford. Very proud of you for being a supporting character in this movie. It was super cool to see a fellow YouTuber in a big screen movie. But the last thing I will add to this review, I've never been in a movie theater that is more invested in a story that's already happened. I don't think anybody in the theater except me actually knew the true story, and people were yelling and chanting and clapping and stoked. Like when he wins a race, people are like losing their mind in the movie theater. That was a good indication that the pacing is good, that it's entertaining to watch, and people wanted to root for Jan. So at the end of the day, do I recommend going to see Gran Turismo, especially if you're a car guy? Actually, yes. Highly recommend it. Go check it out. Movies like this need to be more like of what video game movies need to be. Like I said, it's not a video game movie. I would just compare it to a really great sports movie. Also, make sure to check out one of my previous videos of me driving a crazy, fire-breathing, 3-rotor turbo RX-7. Absolutely bananas. And on that note, I upload on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and I will see you guys next time, and take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.